Welcome, ladies. That's a great panel to follow up on with two superstar executives here with us today. Thank you for being here and welcome to Sport Beach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to jump right in and talk about naming rights and stadiums. We know they're big business and a hot topic for brands and teams today. You two represent two of the most successful and historic business brands and sports teams in the world, which we'll show off a little bit later on. But I'm going to start with you, Lara, and talk about your storied franchise, the Super Bowl champs 4 times over, 3 in the last 5 years. Kansas City Chiefs. I think we may have somebody floating around at some point today that represents the team. Tell us a little bit about how you think about GEHA Field at Arrowhead. What does it represent for the Chiefs and for your fans?
Yeah, I mean, for those that have ever been to GEHA Field at Arrowhead, it really is an iconic building. We call it a destination and kind of a bucket list item in terms of sports experiences. It's Arrowhead for a very, very long time. In 2021, we actually brought on our first field naming rights partner with GEHA, which was a really big transition for our fans and for our community, but it's really been done in a very seamless and meaningful way. But we are considered the loudest stadium in the whole wide world at 142.2 decibels. So it really becomes truly kind of the mecca for Chiefs fans and Chiefs Kingdom, and ultimately has been a place where we've been able to bring a lot of wins and joy back to the Kansas City community.
Definitely a home field advantage.
Yeah, a little
when
bit.
You're playing in Kansas City.
It's loud.
I can tell you from my team, who will not remain nameless right now, that we do not like playing in Kansas City. Talk about a little bit about a stadium and the brand and the personality that a stadium takes on. I think a lot of people don't realize how much stadiums are used for other things other than 8 or 9 home games in a year. Talk a little bit about the scope and scale and how you think about the personality of the stadium.
Yeah, I think that's really been something that's transitioned over time, and I think part of that transition is happening as the Chiefs and our brand become much larger and much more global. For us, the Chiefs are obviously such a big part of the Kansas City community, but our home is at GEHA Field at Arrowhead. What it has become even more now, outside of, obviously, to your point, the games that we are able to play at home, it's pretty much used 365 days a year. So everything from massive concerts that happened last year with Beyonce, for example. We had Monster Jam last weekend. We host weddings and bar mitzvahs and corporate events and Taylor Swift concerts. And it's really become an entertainment destination. And certainly in the Midwest, right? We're kind of truly in the middle of it all. You've got Chicago, Dallas, Denver, much larger cities, obviously. And so it really becomes a destination for entertainment, whether that's sport, whether that's music, whether that's other experiences. And I think it's obviously allowed for, when we open it up beyond just football and sports, we start bringing in a lot of different audiences as well to kind of become part of that larger cycle.
And do you think that's changed over the last couple years? Have you seen the number of events escalating? And I'm leading to the question of, is this a value add for the brands that are represented within the stadium, obviously for your naming partner as well? There's more exposure than ever before. It's escalated.
Absolutely. And I think, I think last year, earlier this year, we hosted Sporting Kansas City, hosted FC Miami. Messi was there. It was a great example where GEHA, which is a local-based company which supports government employees, they were able to reach a much wider audience, right? So if you think about, hopefully we're able to sell out 72,000 fans every single game, but when you start compounding that by 365 days of the year, you're able to create so many more moments and touch points, both for our brand, but certainly for other brands that are partnering, and finding new ways for those brands to activate outside of or in addition to the signage.
I don't think you guys have any trouble selling out your games, coming off some Super Bowl wins.
It's the core of our business, so it's what makes the wheel go round.
Jen, let's talk about your partnership with MassMutual and the Red Sox. You are with one of the most storied brands that have been around for over 100 years. You're a Fortune 100 company, one of the most admired companies in the world. How did you think about the partnership and the business calculation of the partnership that you decided to pursue with the Red Sox at Fenway?
Yeah, it's really a lot. I don't have much more to say. Lara just gave you everything that we looked at and thought about when we did it. It is about the brand, even though every Monday morning during the season, I go into a leadership meeting and get grilled about the pitching over the weekend. I did not get to put that into the 10-year contract. I'm sure you hear about some of those things too, but
can't manage winning.
Yeah, I can't do anything about the players and the contracts, but it really was about connecting two brands, and I think that was a lot of the discussions that we had with the Red Sox too. They really wanted a Boston-based brand. We're almost 175 years old. They're 112 years old. There was a lot of history and heritage with the two brands. It's an iconic brand. We have a regional sponsorship. We are the premier sponsor with the Red Sox, the highest sponsor level they have. If we could have renamed Fenway, which we never would have, ever would have, that's the level of sponsorship we have. But we know that there's such a large fan base across the country of Red Sox fans that's really what we were connecting with at the essence of a brand level. And the fans, and it's just... you go into Fenway, and it's everything that you were saying about really having that presence, and the way that we've branded within Fenway, and all the opportunities that that's given us to reach a bigger, newer audience of potential customers, and engaging with the fans in Fenway as a physical park has been really a huge opportunity for us.
Yeah, talk a little bit about how you thought about branding Fenway and the appropriate way to do it. I think the way you described it is such a thoughtful approach that you took to that to make sure your brand and the Red Sox brand really were able to mesh together.
Yeah, it's Fenway's a really unique experience because of the age of the park. I still go in there and get lost when I get down in the bottom of it. It's beautiful. But the Green Monster is so unique. You can go down into the bottom floor, and it really is like a 0, 1, 2 when you actually get into the main level. Most of the park is actually underground, which a lot of people don't know. But the bricks, there's seats in there that have been there since the park was open. There's just a beautiful heritage. So when we went in there, we had the one unique opportunity, which was a huge PR event opportunity for us too, is that they have a massive center field sign. And for over 10 years, one of our biggest local and sort of industry competitors, John Hancock, had this iconic huge sign on the top of that. So when we created the new sponsorship, we didn't announce it until November, but in October, from a timing perspective, we had to take that sign down. So there was a lot of buzz in Boston when the cranes went out there and started to take this old sign down. Everyone was guessing who was going up and who was going to replace that sign. So we now have a 90-foot sign that we had a lot of fun building, and we did time-lapse of it. And we really got all the employees involved, and we launched it. We built it down in Maryland, and we built the first interactive stadium sign in all of the Major League Baseball parks. And we had a really unique opportunity, too. Our logo is 5 dots, and in the Green Monster, we have the balls and strikes dots that are on the Green Monster. So we said to the team at Fenway, we said we want the dots to connect with the dots in the Green Monster, and they were like, and I was like, no, they're going to do that. So it's really cool now when you come into Fenway, if you don't know that's happening and you see the sign, you can follow along with the strikes and the balls and strikes and the sign. So we've just had a really fun time making sure that it was authentic, but not really disrespecting the essence of the heritage and the history of this beautiful park that's just really been, it's just historic, and we didn't want to mess with that.
Yeah, you have one of the best name placements in all of sports with that wall. So that was some good negotiating right there. Smart placement. Let's talk a little bit about fan engagement opportunities with stadiums and with brands. How do you, Lara, let's go back to you. How do you think about creative ways to engage the community and the fans through your stadium?
So I think probably one of the best examples, which came from last year, so we won the Super Bowl last year. Not obviously.
Obviously to your fans.
Shouldn't assume. Yeah. We won the Super Bowl last year, and when you win the Super Bowl, the kickoff game is in the city of the Super Bowl winner. So for us, it was in Kansas City, which was an amazing experience. Only game right on Thursday night in town with NBC. And so we really wanted to do something kind of big and unique. So for us, and again, if anyone's ever been, tailgating culture is a huge part of the experience at GHA Field at Arrowhead and the Chiefs. I don't know if you can get rated the best, but we're going to call ourselves the best. But it's really a place where people are coming together, barbecue, friends, family, right? It's really communal. And so we wanted to do something that celebrated that. But we also wanted to find a way that we could enhance the existing tailgate experience, which is already amazing, but also give a way to reach more people that weren't able to actually come to the game itself and to Arrowhead. So we created something called the World's Largest Tailgate. We actually hosted basically a 2-hour show where we did it live, and then we've created essentially a virtual stadium at chiefslive.com where over 1 million people from all around the world were able to tune in, feel like they were part of the community, not just watch, but we actually had like a communal kind of storyline going on. We were doing giveaways. We had activated bars all over the country that they were watching together. So we tried to find a way that we can enhance the live experience to another level without disrupting people's routine, which I think is the nuance, right? You don't want to disrupt what people are already doing, but then finding a way to make it and reach a much wider audience, because we know that unless we can stack, 1 million stadiums on top of each other, our ambition is to become the world's team. We're going to need to blend live and hybrid experiences around live sport and around the stadium.
It's such a smart way to think about it, because your fans are now also international, right? So not everybody can get to the stadium when they want to. You're bringing people in, making it more inclusive and creating access and creating more value for the brands that are associated. So Jen, for you, as you think about the fan engagement and the opportunity around that for brands, what was the business calculation for you all at MassMutual as you were thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a media value that you want to get from the basics of the impressions in the media and building the brand awareness and your key metrics around that. But there's also a business value metric for us where we get the opportunity from a hospitality perspective. We have a lot of suites and premium seating, and that's business development for our distribution partners and channels. And then there's also this opportunity to use the space year-round, and how do we, in non-baseball season, get the opportunity to create that same space usage for business, whether it's concerts. We can host hospitality for premium opportunities and partnerships. And we also really like the opportunity to use it for the community and for our employees. So we build, I have the good fortune of also running our foundation and all of our community responsibility programs. And we have 2 objectives with our foundation. One of them is really raising economic development and financial literacy, and that happened to align perfectly with the Red Sox Foundation, where they've been trying to build an education program for the 6th grade students in the Boston public school system. These are lower income economically challenged students, and we worked with them in a program to bring every 6th grade student in. We're going to do it every year. And they have a financial literacy program now where they go through Fenway Park and they use the Centerfield scoreboard for math programs. And it's just been a really nice way to kind of give back on some common goals for those programs that we have in the community. And then we also brought a bunch of employees in a program that we do in August called Picnic in the Park. And we bring in, we bus in families from the Springfield area, because we have a large office out in Springfield, which is in Western Mass. And then from some lower income areas around Boston. And we bring families into Fenway. We let them watch a game on Sunday. And then we have about 70 or 80 employees who volunteer. And then they all get to go down into the park after the game, and we have a big picnic. And really, it's about giving access to lower income families the opportunity to see and experience the park, because a lot of them hear about kids that get to go to the games and they never get to go to the games. So it's a way that, again, like you're saying, like we get to use the stadium to not only build business relationships, we want people in there year-round. And it also gives us a way to get the community involved, and especially with some of our personal priorities in building the communities into better places and making them a part of Fenway, which is giving them access to that as well.
Yeah, it almost becomes a home center, right, that people feel comfortable going to and getting access to. I love that idea. With all the marketers here, let's talk metrics. We love to talk numbers. Jen, with you, thinking about what are the metrics that are important for you to track from a partnership perspective? There's lots of intangibles and incredibly important things that you try to accomplish with that partnership, like you just talked about with the foundation. How do you think about the metrics that you're tracking and what matters to you guys?
Well, in year one, we were really basically about engagement and making sure that we got the sort of key brand metrics and that we were really making sure that we were building our presence with the fans and acknowledging ourselves as a premier partner. And that was a lot of the media metrics. I mean, we got a return of over 300% in the first year. And we didn't make it to the postseason. Not that nobody knows that. If you didn't follow the Red Sox, no surprise. And we're working on the pitching. But I think that's was part of it. We could have, obviously, with more media running into the season longer. But those were important to us. We also worked with a couple different of our sports partnership friends and our internal media metric teams, and also some consulting teams, and we built out a model that really helped us predict the value of sales and sort of forecasting out what we felt was a business opportunity perspective for us. We're bringing in first-party data, which is leads and new customers, and it also is an opportunity for us to bring in new customers and a broader base of customers, which is the Red Sox fan base. So we're calculating the growth opportunities of new customers. And as most of us marketers know, first-party data is really important to us. So we're building a huge base of nurturing and potential lead systems. So these are the core metrics that we're building as sort of growth opportunities for business, future growth, future forecasts of ROI, and then the core brand and media metric impressions value. So we did really well in the first year.
Congratulations. Lara, anything you would add to that from the metrics perspective of how you guys think about it from the Chiefs?
I think to Jen's point, I mean, much of the same in terms of reach, right? Awareness, data has become a much larger part of what we're doing and sharing with partners. But then also, when you think about from the Chiefs perspective, we obviously are a sport and that's our main product, but we've become so much larger in terms of a brand. GHA Field at Arrowhead has its own media channels now, which we've begun to grow. And it was one of those very thoughtful decision around, for us, our reach and our organic reach is valuable, right? There are people that have said that they want to be followers in a world where organic growth on most of the channels doesn't exist at all, right, anymore. So that has certainly become something that we've begun to play more with partners. And then I also think it's about, Jen, as you mentioned too, community and using Arrowhead and GHA Field as a center point is a really big part of Kansas City. So whether that was being a voting destination, right, 4 years ago for the general election, blood drives with some of our partners, a lot of things that we try to use the space, whether it's a parking lot.
As a voting center?
Yes, it was.
On election day?
Yeah, on election day. So trying to find other ways outside of also, let's call it the core kind of business KPIs. But, we like ROI in terms of return on impact on the community has been a big part of what we can do too with the facility and the area around it.
And you've had a long-term partner. Is there any advice that you would provide people as you think about how you manage that relationship? That's an incredibly important relationship for you and for the Chiefs. How do you manage that relationship in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, obviously our partnership and activation team are day in and day out with GHA and as a partner. But I think the advice from a marketing perspective that I would share is to constantly iterate on the plans, right? Because I think obviously the classic signage and the pieces that are part of the actual stadium are kind of the nuts and bolts of it. But I think working really closely with both sides from the brand and the Chiefs as a brand side has been really important. How do we find the parallels? How do we find the overlap so that we can increase the business and the opportunity? How do we also, internally, we do most things internally. We don't really work with outside agencies. And so our team can also be used as a production team. Our team can be used as a creative services team in some ways, or partner with those partners' agencies. So just trying to be even more collaborative, because I think that has certainly allowed for a long-term partner like ours with GHA. Their business is constantly changing too, right? They have different business challenges perhaps every year. So just really not making it kind of a sign and see you in 10 years kind of thing. I just think most brands are just much more complicated than basic signage at this point. And I think that's what we found with the best case scenarios.
Yeah, I think collaboration is the key there. And Jen, you kind of hit the same thing. Anything you learned along the way with your negotiations, Jen, as you think about advice for others that are thinking about going down this route? It's a significant investment with incredible returns for the right brands and the right teams when you get that alignment like you all have. Any lessons learned or any risks that people should think about?
I think it's really a lot of what you're just saying there, Lara, too. I think you have to go in with, you have to go in with the idea that you have to convince the brand that they want to be with you as much as you want to be with them. But it's not just you. Although you feel like you're the buyer and you're the client, they have to be sold on you as much, because it's two brands that are just as important as each other, and they both carry an impact and a weight and a connection together. So don't just go in there being like, oh, wow, I'm the one that they have to convince to write the check. Do your due diligence, but make sure that you bring your right information to them too, because the commitment that you guys have, it is a nonstop relationship. I mean, I am texting, especially when you're going through the negotiation. I spent 9 months or 10 months nonstop, all the time, on the phone, texting, everything, questions. Second, your legal team is not going to understand. If you haven't done this kind of a 10-year deal, you're not going to understand that every single thing in this contract. Are you sure they're going to be able to do this? Just trust me on it. Are they going to give you exactly this many tickets for everything? Just trust me on it. There is a relationship that you have. It is a huge relationship business. And it's just, trust me, they'll throw it in. They'll chuck it in. And they don't get that. They want to see everything specifically in writing. It's trust and relationship. And there is a lot of give and take. And you just got to be ready to go through that with your legal team. Don't ask them to put every single thing in writing. Trust me, they'll do good to you. I think that's a real big thing around it. And like you said, it's not set in stone. Work every year. Look at, we've only been year 2, but we went through meticulous data and looked at every single thing, down to one of the most premium pieces that we have besides the center field sign is we have our logo right behind home plate on the pad behind the umpire. And even though it looks exactly the same right now as it did last year, trust me when I tell you, we told them to take it down and increase it, and we shifted and moved it because the difference in media impressions, we weren't getting enough media impressions off of that. And when we went to the Red Sox with it, because we had the data, we said, we got to make it bigger. And they're like, are you sure? And I said, look, either you get me a skinny umpire every game, or you change the size of that logo. We are not getting enough TV spots on this. And they're good about it, but every little thing, but open it up and revisit it every year. But you got to be good partners, and you got to be willing to open it up. And these are your best friends for 10 years. And you got to trust that, and tell your legal team that. You don't have to have it all in writing. Just trust me. We're going to be able to change it and fix it, and it'll work.
Yeah, there's a lot of trust that you have to have between the brand and the team. I know, Lara, we talked a little bit about it being an asset, and thinking about how you create new assets, especially with a team that's been around for a long time. Whether it's leased or owned, it's still an asset. How do you guys think about that from the franchise perspective?
Yeah, I would say when we kind of look at our portfolio now, and we see in many ways we're smaller than many brands here, but a smaller portfolio company, right? We have obviously the core football asset. We have our cheerleaders. We have 34 female athletes. Obviously, the stadium becomes a big one for us. So we started also thinking about not only the version when we rent it out, whether there's a concert or a Monster Jam, an existing property, but our team, and we have a team within the organization, Arrowhead Events, that run on both the operations side, but are also working with us in partnerships and marketing to come up with net new experiences and events. So whether that's a 5K where fans are getting the opportunity to run around the stadium, which is a really big deal, and end their race on the field, which for most people, even employees, it's kind of an amazing thing to stand on the field where amazing thing happen. We've done movie nights on the field, so trying to find new commercial and brand-led experiences where we can use the facility and what we have. But then, again, like I said, I think for us figuring out how do we take the essence of what it is to come to a Chiefs game live and finding ways to bring that into a social and digital landscape. And we played in Frankfurt in the fall, and we did this massive activation with a ship that we called the Championship, which is the greatest name of all time. It just happened to work well. But again, while it was a ship, we tried to bring a lot of the elements of what it was like at GHA Field through, and then hopefully over time those fans may buy a piece of merch, may watch a piece, obviously, of content, may ultimately buy a flight and come to a game. So we're starting to see those consumers in a much more mature way. And again, with the assets, it all really becomes a connected ecosystem.
Yeah, and the assets of sports, we've watched the valuations of teams skyrocketing across all the leagues, whether it's NFL or NBA, WNBA, NWSL. It's really exciting to watch. but it goes to the value of these partnerships and relationships. Before we go, I want to have you show off your bling. We have the latest Super Bowl ring up here on display. It's really cool if you want to see it.
You can tell quickly who's a Chiefs fan.
Yeah. Regardless of your fan affiliation, it's pretty impressive and hot off the presses. I think they were given out when?
Show the necklace
Thursday.
Show the necklace
so
the necklace.
And then the necklace, she's got one from last year on a necklace. So come find her later, get a picture. It's pretty amazing. Congratulations to both of you. Very exciting. Thank you for being here, and thanks for staying in the rain.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.